Hey everyone, welcome back to 996 The Howl. At the halfway point of this season is flying by. A really mixed bag the past 10 games. They finished games 30 to 40 going 5 wins, 5 regulation losses. Not terrible. I mean, the 20 game mark there were 4-5-1, 30 game mark 6-4, and then now 5-5. So still just hovering around 500. They've never had a 10 game block of being more wins, more than 2 above NHL 500. They're 20-18-2. So honestly, 20 wins, 20 losses for the Arizona Coyotes. Good for 24th in the league. Pretty low, if I'm being honest here, and I should be honest all the time. Goals for, pretty down in the dumps at 2.95 goals per game. 23rd in the league. It was at 3.03 at the 30 game mark. I need this number to be over 3. At the 10 game mark, it was at 3.3, then went to 3.15, 3.03, 2.95. So since the start of the season, it's been a huge downward trend. For goals against, they're at 3.08, only 17th in the league. I thought it'd be like 25th in the league. It's a pretty high number. You don't want it above 3 goals against per game. They're at 2.87 goals against per game at 30 games, which I loved to see. At the 10 game mark, it was at 2.7, 20 game mark 3.15. So goals against per game is up and down, along with save percentage. We'll get to that later. Power play, it's been consistent all season, around 23, 25%. It's currently standing at 11th in the league. No real complaints about the power play. I do see sometimes that, if you have a really good power play, it could turn the tide of the game. And there's pivotal moments where the Coyotes kind of have a futile power play that if they just had a good power play, the game could have turned around really easily and make the game easier for them. But honestly, I'm not going to complain about a almost top 10 power play in the league. Penalty kill, at the 10 game mark, it was awful at like 72%, but it's been around 78 and 80 since the 10 game mark. It could be better, I agree, but honestly, their defensive play 5-on-5 seems way worse than the penalty killing at 5-on-4. Save percentage is at 902, still good for 13th in the league. Again, I always say this, goalie save percentage average across NHL is really low this year. It's at 898. It was at 910 at the 30 game mark, which was amazing and elite. The highest was the 10 game mark, where it was at 914. So obviously 10 games, not a good sample size. It went to 903, back to 910, and then back down to 902. So like goals against per game, it's been up and down all season. Shooting percentage, 9th in the league. It's down almost 0.5% at 10.8%. Shots per game, it's a bit up, but still at the bottom of the league, 27.25 shots per game. I mean, we saw it that Winnipeg game where they had 17 shots in the whole game. Just completely unacceptable. I'll get to more like what is wrong with the Coyotes later. Face-offs, again, bottom of the barrel, 46.5%. And hits per game, it's a little bit up at 17.25 hits per game. We'll go to players now. Top 5 scoring players. Kerfoot makes an appearance here. Pretty unbelievable, but honestly, in the last 10 games, he was put on that top line with Keller and Schmaltz, which I thought was a great move, and I thought they performed really well. Not sure why they separated Kerfoot and put him on the 4th line the past 2 games and put McBain there. I love McBain, but I just thought Kerfoot, Schmaltz, and Keller just worked, and I had no problems with it. So I think they'll probably go back to Kerfoot in that slot position, number 1 center, until Hayden comes back. Keller, 15 goals, 20 assists, 35 points in 40 games, so slightly under a point a game. All our expectations this season were either to do better than last year, finally break that Coyotes franchise record. My expectation was 80 points, so he's right there. I agree, maybe a bit quiet, but to be honest, I think his partner in Schmaltz, no one's really talking about anything negative about Schmaltz, and it feels weird to talk about how bad Schmaltz has been, considering he just scored 3 goals in a row in 3 straight games. So in recency, the recency bias is he's doing well, but in a 10-game span, 10 points in 10 games played, he was a bit ghosting in the first, 6 or 7 games of this 10-game stretch. Schmaltz is at 13 goals, 13 assists, 26 points in 40 games, like half a point per game. We need Schmaltz to be better. He's not a 45-point player. He should be a 60, 70-point player, especially being our top line winger with Keller. I'd be interested to see how much longer Tourney keeps the duo of Keller and Schmaltz together, because it seems like he's breaking up everyone except those two. And if you really want to wake up the team and fans, separating those two players would be a huge statement and a huge message to send to the roster. Michelli and Krause doing their thing. I don't know why Tourney separated them for 1 game and then put them back together. I think that was a mistake as well. Like, Michelli and Krause has been the most consistent duo over the course of the 40 games. It just works. You should probably keep them together. And like I said, Kerfoot makes an appearance. 5 goals, 19 assists, 24 points. Good to see Kerfoot up in the top 5. But again, Kerfoot shouldn't be in your top 5 point getters. At the 30-game mark, I believe I said the same thing about Bukestad. We need better players to be in that top 5. Dursey missed a couple games, but I think he's a point or two behind Kerfoot. So I expect to see Dursey in the top 5 at the 50-game mark. Some disappointments. Carconi, I talked a lot of praise about him at the 30-game mark, and I was saying how I was wrong about him and that he's making me look bad. And now he has 2 points in 10 games played. For me, it just needs to be more consistent with Carconi. It can't be bursts of, like, in 6 games he has 4 goals and then disappears for 15 games. It's like more consistent, and that's been my problem with Carconi his whole time in this organization. In the NHL level, he's just not consistent, and it's rare to see him perform well, because once he performs well, it'll be a couple games and then you rarely notice him. And Tourney agrees with that, I guess, because now he's been on the 4th line for like a few games now, so he's got to get it going a little bit here as well. But again, we shouldn't be relying on Carconi to get points. Like, Keller, Schmaltz needs to lead the team. Michelli and Krause are doing well. I say Schmaltz and Keller, yeah. And then Cooley, 4 points in 10 games. Again, like Schmaltz, he's playing really well recently, but again, I just need to see some more points. Like, 4 points in 10 games played. He plays well enough that he should be getting more points, but just the points aren't there. Again, I like how he's been playing. Not going to be too hard on him. He looks good. He's making great plays. Just, again, you look at the stat sheet, and you kind of just want more out of Cooley. He's a young player. He's going to be a superstar, but it just would be nice if he, like, had such a big impact in certain games where he gets the team back in the game, or he's that game-breaking type of player. Like, let's say, they were down 3-0, 4-1 against Calgary last night. What if Cooley just erupted and had, 2 goals or 2 great primary assists? I know he had a great primary assist on Keller's goal, and I love this primary assist on Gunther's goal the game before. But, just a little more points out of Cooley, and I'd be maybe a bit more joyful about him. But again, not going to be too hard. I feel like his game has been really good the past 2 games. Just, want to see some more points there. Kerfoot had 8 points in the past 10 games, if I didn't mention that. Then we go to goalies, which I have, things to say about goaltending. I don't know why Vejmelka started the game against Calgary. I feel like moving forward, Vejmelka is the backup. You should be only playing him in back-to-back situations, or you're against a basement team like San Jose, Chicago, Ottawa, Anaheim, maybe Columbus. Like, this is Ingram's net. I understand Ingram's got a bit of some suspect games, but his goalie stats don't lie. He's 14-8, a .915 save percentage, a .262 goals against average. And you look at Vejmelka's stats, it's like Ingram should have had that Calgary game. I don't know why we played Vejmelka. This team is not playing back-to-backs in the first 11 days of 2024. I believe they play like 5 games in like 14, 15 days. They're not tired. Ingram's not tired. It wasn't a back-to-back. He did let in a few suspect goals against Boston, but he really righted the ship and kept the Coyotes in it late in the third period against Boston and in overtime making that save against Pastrnak on the breakaway. I felt he deserved to play last night against Calgary. And then Vejmelka, I just don't like the way he played. Like the first goal, the breakaway, yes, a defensive breakdown. It's a breakaway goal in the first like 2 minutes of the game, and the first shot, just he gets beaten on his blocker side. And then the second goal, he's so out of his crease, or he's at the top of his crease, where the opposing player, all he needs to do is one little inch. Like that 1 inch of forehand to backhand opened up the whole net to Vejmelka's side and gets beaten there. If you're more deeper in the net, you don't need to move as much to cover the angle. Just because he's so far out, he has to move so much to cover so much area, whereas Ingram plays deeper. If he was a bit deeper in the crease near the goal line, Ingram, all he had to do was shift, and then Sharangovich would still not have so much room. But against Vejmelka, he makes that one deke and has a whole net open to him because Vejmelka is so far out and needs to move so much to cover that side of the net. Just an example of how I think moving forward, we're at the halfway point of the season. You know Ingram's better. You know Ingram's more consistent. You know Ingram's not in his own head. You got to give the bulk of games moving forward to Ingram. I'm talking 75 to 80% of games here. So I know we're in a bit of a negative mood here. If you say, what's wrong with the Coyotes, I honestly have no idea. They entered 2024 winning 6 of 7. They were on a roll. And then now in the new calendar year, they've won 1 out of 5 games, all at home. The Mullet Magic doesn't seem to be there as consistent as last season. To me, it seems more like a mental game. It's like you could clearly see immediately once a puck drops what type of Coyotes team are you going to get. If they're fast, moving their legs, creating offensive chances early, it's going to be a good game. If they just come out flat, look tired, no energy, they're going to get run out of the building. I don't know what the kind of pregame the Coyotes have. Maybe that's an issue. They have 2 first period goals in this 10-game stretch. That's like 2 goals in 3 full games of hockey. So it seems like a mental thing with this team. They're not prepared. They come out flat. They don't really get their game going until they've dug themselves into such a big hole, where sometimes they come out of it, like against Ottawa down 3-0, against the Avalanche down 4-0, come back and win. So it just seems like a preparation thing to me. There's nothing really on the ice that seems like they need. Well, obviously the defense is a bit weak, conceding a lot of odd man rushes, and just the coverage in that Calgary game was abysmal. Like the open area in front of the goaltender, the slot, the home area was wide open, and Calgary was just putting the puck to that area all night and getting some decent looks and shots on the goaltending. However, I don't expect so much from this defense. If you look at the defense on paper, they're not supposed to be amazing. And thankfully, the Coyotes have 0 NHL defensemen signed next season. So Bill Armstrong could put all his fingerprints on this defense in the offseason and just make it what it is. Because, you can't have Stetcher, Kesselring, Valimaki, and Dumba all playing consistently every night. Like, those are 4 bottom pairing defensemen. You need better defensemen, and I understand they don't have it yet. That's why maybe in my videos I'm not too hard on the defense, because my expectations for this defensive core is really poor. The offense, there's a huge stretch there against Florida, the Islanders, and the Jets, where it was really futile and really poor, and I had huge concerns about the offense. They have the talent there. I don't like the line juggling. Sometimes it works. Like against Boston, it sort of worked. I like that. But we're halfway through this season, and if you're blending the lines every night, this is not the time to do it. That's like early season stuff. Mid-season is you're all about stability, consistency, focusing on the smaller details, and being more structured, as opposed to just, we don't know what to do, we're just going to try things and try to mix things up. It also doesn't get easier moving forward. They have the third toughest strength of schedule in the Western Conference moving forward. They played 15 games in the first half of the season against basement teams. And now for the second half of the season, they're only playing 6 basement teams. That is the lowest in the NHL. So it's getting harder. You're not going to be facing those basement teams like Anaheim, San Jose, Ottawa, Columbus much anymore. They still have 1 or 2 more games against Chicago. And then they don't play many games at home in the second half of the season. They have 3 less home games than away games in the second half of the season, which again is one of the highest disparities in the league in the second half. So they're going to face some tough competition. They're going to be on the road more, and we're going to see what this team is made of. Are they finally going to put on the work boots and the hard hat and go to work and prove us wrong? Or is it going to be just a disappointing, underwhelming finish in the second half? I hope they fix whatever funk they're in mentally, preparation, and prove us wrong and get back to that expectation we saw in the first half of the season. Because right now, the only way this team gets in the playoffs is if like Nashville implodes and Calgary, St. Louis, and Seattle don't really have it in them to grab that spot, and the Coyotes get back to the right way to play hockey like we've seen in the first half of the season, and just do that consistently. And they got to finally realize if you play this certain way, they're going to lose and get blown out. If they play this way, it's going to be a competitive game, maybe go into overtime, and most likely win the game in regulation. So again, pretty negative 40 game mark. It's been a roller coaster the past 10 games. They started out so good, and then it's been 4 terrible games out of 5, all at home, which just makes things worse and puts a bad taste in your mouth. Hopefully it gets better. So that's it for me. Thank you for watching. If you like what you see, spread the word. And as always, thank you for your support.